Brian D. Evans joins us today. He is a founder of BDE Ventures. He's an entrepreneur. We'll be talking about his latest venture and what to expect from the gaming and Web3 worlds. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, David. How's it going? Thanks for having me here.
It's going great. Thank you for being here. Let's start with crypto first. Risks and opportunities for the crypto investors. We're talking offline about your concerns about how Bitcoin might dominate everything. Might be good for Bitcoin investors, though. Not so much for the others. What do you think?
Yeah, look, and I'm not a maxi. I'm pro all crypto, just to be clear. And I hope they all do well, and I think they will long term. For Bitcoin, the kind of the trend that tends to happen is when we get a pump to Bitcoin, everything else kind of bleeds, and that's NFTs, that's other cryptos, that's even Ethereum. Less so, but the money tends to get sucked into Bitcoin, and if things like an ETF, do happen, that'll be heavily focused around Bitcoin in the next sort of narrative. And with the Bitcoin halving coming, I think we could definitely see other things bleed. I hope it doesn't, but it is possible, coming forward, that we see a lot of attention go towards Bitcoin again. And that tends to, and that could kick off a next bull run for crypto. So that's not a bad thing. And then eventually the money kind of goes up to Bitcoin and spreads out to sort of other things. It tends to be what happens.
Yeah. Why do you think Bitcoin dominance has been rising so steadily over the last couple of months, in the sense that we've got Bitcoin rising alongside stocks, but most of the altcoins haven't done well, at least the ones that I've seen?
Yeah, I think this ETF narrative is really getting people's attention right now. And I think that plus the halving coming up next year, let's say it's around May of 2024, roughly, when the rewards change for Bitcoin, that tends to be a bullish event. And it's kind of painted this positive narrative right now. So yeah, it's a lot of focus is going back to Bitcoin. There's also a lot of happening in the ordinals and Satoshi space, the SAT space. For people that don't know, those are essentially blocks of Bitcoin that have different rarities that can now be, you can go back and check your Bitcoin and see what blocks you have. So you could have a rare block or an uncommon block that can actually be worth money, in addition to the Bitcoin itself. So there's a lot happening in that space. You can inscribe either names, you can do like Brian.sats, and you can inscribe images and logos, kind of like NFTs on Bitcoin. So there's other narratives happening with Bitcoin right now that people don't realize, that the mainstream doesn't realize, but the sort of the insiders of the crypto world are seeing this, and they're kind of, their eyes are blowing up, and everyone's looking around at each other saying, "Whoa, this is something new happening with Bitcoin that could drive another bull run with these kind of three things happening." So I think, but with this ETF narrative of money potentially going to Bitcoin, in the SAT space, and on top of that, the Bitcoin halving itself is historically over the years tends to be a very bullish event. So yeah, it's there's always market macro factors that could crush all of this, right? So that's always a possibility of things just get pushed down longer. But this institutional kind of adoption, potentially led by ETFs, could be another huge run for crypto here.
One thing we have to be wary of in regards to the halving that's happening next year is that every time Bitcoin halves, the mining costs go up. And so
True.
I've heard various estimates as to what the break-even cost could be. I've heard as high as 40,000. Suppose the Bitcoin price doesn't go to 40,000 by then, and that we actually see an environment in which mining costs exceed the price of Bitcoin. What do you think is going to happen?
Could be a problem. It will depend on people's long-term views of this. If they think Bitcoin's still going to $1 million, people might just bite the bullet and keep going anyways, keep mining, right? I don't see it as a death of Bitcoin if that does happen. I think people will be willing to sort of invest and see the long-term outlook. Just saying, okay, markets are down right now. Yeah, we could see a reduction in mining for sure, but I don't think it's going to kill it by any means.
So there's no existential threat to Bitcoin right now?
I don't see one. I think it's proven now long enough. We've seen all the threats over the years, in different ways, kind of in market macro conditions and things like that. But I don't see necessarily an existential crisis on hand.
This is an interesting article I pulled up from CoinDesk. Just read you the headline: Bitcoin no longer correlated to U.S. stocks, crypto analytics firm Block Scholes says. It's a nice play on the word Black Scholes. That's funny. But anyway, the 90-day rolling correlation between Bitcoin and NASDAQ S&P 500 is now at the lowest level observed since July 2021. I mean, I understand you can take different periods. You can get different periods of different varying degrees of correlation. But according to this analysis, the last 90 days hasn't really been correlated. Actually, if you just take a look at the charts, that's absolutely true. Now, the NASDAQ has been going up while Bitcoin has been somewhat flat. It's gone up a little bit since the ETF news has been announced, but it has not caught up with the NASDAQ. Why do you think that is?
I don't see an uncorrelation, being uncorrelated. I don't see that as a bad thing because the argument against crypto for a long time and Bitcoin, et cetera, was that, oh, it's just correlated. It's just going up and down with the markets. And I actually see I see a decoupling being a positive event. I would hope long-term people realize that, this is a completely separate thing than stocks and traditional markets, Bitcoin, and other cryptos, obviously. To me, I see it as a very positive event to not be coupled with the regular markets. If it takes a little bit longer, but ends up going a lot higher than regular markets, maybe that's a positive thing.
Yeah. So you mentioned ordinals. What other practical applications of Bitcoin can we see that would be adopted over the next couple of years?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think first and foremost, it's Bitcoin. We look for innovation in Bitcoin, but I think the beauty of Bitcoin is that the system just works great how it is. So we don't need innovation in Bitcoin itself. We can have innovation around the broader crypto space, maybe in Ethereum. It's more combustible and things like that to build on top of Ethereum. So I think you'll see a lot more innovation perhaps on the Ethereum side, and maybe that's a good thing for Bitcoin as well, because it's just so tried and proven to be the savings, so to speak, of crypto and just the safest, and that's probably the bull case for it, is that it doesn't have a lot of additional things that can be done with it, that it just works so well how it is. You hear about hacks and all these other things with other cryptos and other chains. And, that's because they are innovating in different ways and pushing the limits of what's possible. And it becomes a bad thing in some cases. I personally just think Bitcoin, how it is great. It's cool to see what's happening with the sats because it creates a collector narrative. I want to go out and collect those rare blocks right now. So I'm looking around trying to figure out how to get these rare blocks. There could be one thing that's possible, and we're seeing a metaverse narrative, generally speaking, in the crypto space and beyond, obviously. But Bitcoin itself with these blocks, you can actually create a metaverse, essentially. So we could see, different implementations of metaverses and, on that side as well with Bitcoin. So that could be an additional kind of use case. But I'm not counting on that. I think Bitcoin, just how it is, to be clear, is perfectly fine and well, and we don't need the innovation. Payments, yeah, it'd be cool if with maybe Lightning, et cetera, payments could be a little bit better, faster with Bitcoin, but I don't think it has to be. I think we can use other forms of crypto for that if need be. And it's easy enough at this point to swap in and out of cryptos. So I just think unfortunately there's a within the crypto world, there's maxis that kind of, I'm only a Bitcoin person, I'm only an ETH person. I'm kind of an every crypto person. I want them all to succeed. I think when the mainstream looks in, and I learned this on the TV show we filmed recently, when the mainstream looks in the normies, so to speak, but they see all this infighting within the crypto world, it kind of paints a bad picture. So I'm pro most of the cryptos and the non-scammy ones anyways. Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera. I'm pro all of them. So I think, and I hope more people kind of realize that it's just shooting ourselves in the foot if we're so maxi in one direction.
Well, tell us about some of the projects that you've worked with and what people's priorities are right now in terms of sectors within Web3 that have the most development potential.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Web3 gaming. In many ways, Web3 gaming, I was filming this TV show recently called The Next Crypto Gem. It comes out in about a month. Hearing from a lot of normies and sort of, people that aren't, familiar with the crypto space, perhaps, it clicked in my mind. And I've always been a proponent of Web3 gaming. But gaming in general, because here's an interesting fact about gaming, and this might be obvious for some, not obvious for others. More people play video games than watch TV on a global scale. So that's how big the gaming.
Yeah, industry. I mean, the gaming industry, I think by revenue, is bigger than TV and movies and music combined.
Combined, yeah. So it's an absolutely massive industry. There's been lots of transitions. This is why for gaming, think about games early on, the Mario Brothers days. It was a closed loop game that you basically played for a while, then you died, and you game over. Okay, I'm done now. I'm gonna get some popcorn. I'm gonna stop playing. The next evolution of games was they had open loop games where they just go on forever. The Candy Crushes of the world, the Flappy Birds, et cetera, where the game just keeps going and there's infinite levels basically. Then they made online games, connected games where we could play a game together remotely. I'm here in LA, you're somewhere else, and we could play, over the internet, Call of Duty or something. And MMORPGs, role-playing games, et cetera, all online connected worlds as well. The next evolution of games is this idea of owning parts of those assets because the player agency, meaning an AI ties into this. The ability to the NPCs, the characters in the games, with AI now, they could go look at your profile online, create a whole new story based on you. And the entire game could change around you using AI. So players are much more connected to the game than they ever were before. But when you become that character, when you're playing these games, you, in many ways, you start to see yourself as these characters, right? And you want to own a piece of that. So ownership is the next level of gaming, where you want to own as an NFT or whatever these assets in these games. So the character, in Web 2 world, you never saw somebody representing, putting their Call of Duty picture or a Fortnite picture as their profile picture. In Web3, you see it all the time. So the virality of Web3 is just that much greater. In fact, most people don't know this story, but Vitalik, before he created Ethereum, he was playing World of Warcraft. And he quit World of Warcraft because they made changes to his character that he didn't like. And he went on to create Ethereum. A lot of the concepts from gaming made it to Ethereum. So, for instance, soulbound tokens are concepts in video games where you have a token or an item that's locked to your soulbound items. They're locked to your account. You can't change them. You can't trade them or give them to anybody else. There's a concept in Ethereum called soulbound tokens where they're locked to your wallet. You're the only one that could own them. Even the smart contracts themselves in Ethereum are kind of similar to games where they have a set of rules that the players have to play by. And there's only a certain number of changes and things that can happen. So a lot of these concepts from gaming actually made it to Ethereum, coincidentally. And then, as we're seeing now, a lot of builders moving towards Web3 gaming, there's a huge narrative now of Web2 AAA, meaning the top quality of games building in the Web3 space. We're even seeing metaverses being created by like Epic Games and others, but there's a lot of small to mid-level builders building in this space as well. Combine that with AI, with AI now, it's so good that it's democratizing the ability to create games. Games are very expensive to build. But now with an AI tool, I can draw a level just like this with basically like a 5-year-old would, and the AI will fill it in. Window over here, door over here, pathway here, and the AI will just fill it in. I can say I want it to look like a dungeon in whatever, and it'll fill in the level and just create it for me, and then I can do that into an infinite degree. So the combination of these tools really creates a very strong case for games to really break out in this Web3 kind of ecosystem.
The counter argument I've heard to Web3 gaming or anything related to blockchain in the gaming space is that it's not really necessary, in the sense that, you can challenge this if you like. The purpose of gaming is to entertain people. So as long as the game is fun, I'll play it. I don't like, these Web3 games, they need to be fun. I don't want to. Sometimes I just want to log on to my PS5 and play GTA 5 or whatever, and I want to just go on Call of Duty. I don't need to worry about the hassle of creating a asset to share or we're soulbounding my tokens or whatever. It's just, I just want to shoot some stuff.
No, absolutely, and that's part of it. But when you get invested into these games, the game just closes one day, and you're like, oh, that sucks. I spent 2 years building up this character, and I don't have anything to show for it. And that kind of sucks for some of the game players. And it's the games you're going to get to a quality of game. There was just a narrative of play to earn games that didn't kind of work out, and it just showed us what was possible, but it wasn't really. It was just kind of more opportunistic ways of generating money for game creators that doesn't represent the whole community perhaps. But I think we're going to see less of a difference. We're going to see this Web 2.5 world where it's and the back end, a wallet is being created and your character is being stored as an NFT, but you don't have to get into the geeky stuff of creating wallets and swapping tokens around and things like that. So I think it's going to be more seamless in the future where it just happens. It's there. Your gold in your game is your tokens, your character is an NFT, and you can take them off and use them if you want and trade them, or you don't have to. But certain countries, certain parts of the world, Japan, for instance, my jujitsu coach was actually telling me this, and I didn't realize this, but it makes a lot of sense in hindsight, that certain parts of the world, so in Japan, there was a lot, in many parts of Asia, there was a bigger narrative of Web3 gaming. They were way more bullish on it than the West, perhaps. And I was thinking, why is that? Well, he was telling me that in Japan, like the samurai sword, for instance, in some families, the samurai sword, the sword has been passed down for generations, 10 generations, perhaps, maybe more. And some of them have a name and a soul in their mind, and they're more connected to items. So in a Web3 sense, in a digital asset sense, they were more connected to their in-game character and items on a deeper level than maybe it would happen in the West. So there was more of a focus on that and more connection. We saw more development and more usage in those parts of the world. So yeah, there's different people look at it a little bit differently, but it's certainly a good argument that the games need to be good.
Why do we need to trade in-game items with tokens? Why can't we just use the US dollar like fiat?
Well, the problem is a lot of these games now. I've played some Diablo 4, for instance. They don't even really have an auction house. There's not really a good way to trade anything. It's very clunky, but everybody wants to trade. So it's really just the old guard changing of, it's the same thing as everything else, where it's a centralized company that wants to control everything, just like the rest of the world and everything else with social media, et cetera, that they don't want to necessarily have that because it takes away from their bottom line, perhaps. But as this happens more and more, and people realize that, hey, wait, you can own, instead of just people spend all these money on Fortnite skins, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars or more, and they lose their account, they get banned or something, and they don't actually own that. But when they start to realize these things of, wait, I'm spending all this money, I might as well do it in a game that I can take those out and actually own them and not be locked into the game. Also, the other good use case is games living on. I've played games before where they just decide to stop supporting it one day. Gala Games, for instance, has a model where it's decentralized and they can operate on, me and you can host the game. We don't necessarily need them. If they crash and burn as a company, we can still host the game and still play it. So there's different narratives, and there's, this is not a small group of people. This is, companies like Animoca Brands have invested billions, into the gaming ecosystem for Web3. So this is something that a lot of people are really focused on and, believe is the future of gaming.
What kinds of games do you think will most likely see development in the Web3 space?
Yeah, I think role-playing games will be a big one, because people invest a lot of time. MMORPGs, for instance, like a World of Warcraft type game, will come out. And really it's the fact that people invest so much time into these games. And, the trend in gaming is player agency, which basically means interactive experiences that are customized to me, and customized to the way I play. And coupled with AI, I've invested now so much time and energy into these games that it only makes sense to have those assets. And it's not about it's not about making money, perhaps, for a lot of players. In fact, that's perhaps a negative. Is many people play games for escapism, right? You kind of alluded to before. They kind of just want to play and just I'm just going to go shoot some things or drive around in Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto and kind of mess around for a bit, and that's totally fine. But still, at the end of the day, people do invest a lot of time into these, and it would be nice to be able to own those assets outside of the games.
What are the financial implications of owning these assets?
Basically, it's not a lot. I mean, it's if, for instance, we're building a game called Alpha District, and for the game, when you log into the game, you'll eventually, it's not out yet. You'll realize at some point, oh, in my account, my character is an NFT, and for a very small, whatever the transaction cost is on the chain that we use, dollars we're talking, you'll be able to take that out of the game if you want to, or you just can leave it in there, or you can earn enough tokens, gold in the game, essentially, that it'll essentially cover the cost. So that NFT could then go on to be worth something, not worth something. Somebody wants to trade you for it, etc. So there's no burden perhaps, but there could be an upside in somebody wanting to buy it from you one day or trade it or do something with it, or I want to, use it, take the NFT off, because now on Twitter you can add an NFT as your profile picture. And you see this a lot in the Web3 Twitter space. You see people representing their characters or their favorite NFT projects on Twitter as their own identity, because they identify with these characters and they feel like it looks like them, or represents their alter ego, or whatever. This is why the narrative could be that much more viral for Web3 games, because people actually represent them and wear those profile pictures on social media, where you've never seen that before in traditional games. You don't wear a Call of Duty character on social media or change your WhatsApp to your Fortnite skin. That very rarely happens. But in Web3, it happens all the time. So I think we'll see this chat GTP effect, where something comes out as a smash hit game in Web3 and has millions of users overnight, perhaps, or over a short period of time, that say they finally click and go, oh, that's what this is all about. Yeah, why did I just pay all that money to whatever game studio and have nothing to show for it, when in fact I could just do the same thing, still play a cool game as the cool games come out to Web3, but also own the assets, also make the tokens and as gold, etc. So it's just you're more part of the experience now.
As a game developer, wouldn't you want to discourage people trading items? I mean, wouldn't people in the community complain about this being unfair? I can just buy my way to the best gear instead of having to grind and do the work, so to speak.
It's a good argument. Yeah, it's an East versus West kind of problem. It's in a lot of Asia, et cetera. In the West, it's like, oh, you bought that gun? Oh, of course, that's why you're so good. In parts of Asia, I've talked to a lot of gamers. They say, oh, wow, you have that? You bought that item? Wow, you're a god. So there's different parts of the world look at this problem completely differently. It's a very 50-50 split. But it's not only about buying items to be better in the game. Perhaps it's maybe just owning your character and owning your identity. So identity becomes a big part of it, and just the experience of, there's all sorts of things that could happen with coupling this with AI and beyond. So,
why do you think the big game studios aren't looking into the space? Well, maybe they are, but they've just not chosen not to engage in Web3. Why am I not seeing StarCraft tokens, or you brought World of Warcraft several times? Great example. Why can't Blizzard actually banned gray market trading? So
yeah, absolutely. It's a combination of things, and they are moving in a sense of metaverses, and I think that's the first step. And I think we're going to see, after metaverses are more fully realized of what they are and what those use cases are, I think people are going to go, okay, and the next step is digital assets. It's just an old guard changing the guard problem. It's they're not incentivized because they don't see, it's a too big of a risk for them, because they're making their money now how they are, and they see it as a risk probably. Just like we saw the banks, it's basically asking banks why they don't want crypto. It's the same thing, but it's just going to take, all it's going to take is one real smash hit to come out, and then everyone to go jump on, because people don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to be the first one to suggest switching everything to digital assets, and then they're going to get fired if it doesn't work. But if everybody else is doing it, which will eventually happen, and some smash hit viral game comes out that uses Web3 and digital assets, they're going to all look back and go, they're all going to look at it and say, okay. And they're all working on strategies, by the way. This is not something they're completely saying no to. They're saying no publicly, just the same way the banks said no to crypto and then secretly were building blockchains. They're all actually watching this space very closely, and they're having their plans ready to go, ready to press fire when it does happen, and when they have more sort of the social proof to be able to justify doing it, or having a need to do it. When other competitor games, if a Call of Duty or a competitor, Counter-Strike, their competitor comes out and launches some NFTs and it works really well, or digital assets in any capacity, they're going to kind of have to. So it's just
I guess that's what you're saying. Nobody wants to take the first mover initiative and taking the risk, because might be a big investment, it might flop. They want to see if it actually works. They're waiting for someone.
They'll see an independent game developer doing it. Yeah, it'll take an independent Star Atlas or somebody will when they come out, if that goes really well, or one of these, big time is like the World of Warcraft of Web3, or maybe our game Alpha District, who knows? Some game will come out and be a real big hit. And they're all going to look at it and go, oh, okay, it's going to be same as ChatGTP. It's like before that, it was AI space. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, now everyone's building an AI space. It's going to be that, I think.
Okay. And how do investors profit from this rising Web3 gaming trend?
I mean, you can invest. That's the great thing about, I mean, crypto really democratizes investing, which is great. You can buy these tokens and you can buy these digital assets in many ways, right? So I remember years ago trying to invest into games or just any kind of tech pre-IPO or early stage, and it was very difficult. If you don't know somebody or have a massive net worth, good luck. And this is even still true today for the most part. But with crypto and tokens, you can go on a decentralized platform and just do it right now. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need anything other than a little bit of money. So I think that's the great part about all this, is that anybody can kind of get into it as these games and different platforms come out. So it really democratizes the ability to hold these assets.
All right. And where can people learn more about BDE Ventures? Well, tell us about BDE Ventures and what you do, and where can people learn about you? Yeah.
We're a venture studio. So we help incubate projects. We advise companies. So we're building a Web3 game right now called Alpha District. I was helping with this TV show, The Next Crypto Gem, as well, an advisor there. This first mainstream crypto TV show, it's going to be in like 170 plus platforms, including Amazon Prime and Apple TV, and many others globally, in about 50 plus countries. It's coming out in the next month or so. Mainstream crypto reality TV show. So we're working on different projects that we basically help incubate and build out.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we'll put a link in the description to your Twitter as well. You've got a big Twitter following. So congratulations. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Awesome.
Brian, good to see you
Thanks,
again.
David. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.